This could create a violent backlash. What's your take on that?
One is always hopeful that there will not be a violent backlash, and clearly the president thought that he was putting forward a plan that could move things forward. He promised to do that in the election campaign, and he's done that. The problem is that what he did is solve almost all of the issues by deciding it in the Israeli favor, and therefore, even when they're offered as states, the state will not be no more a state than the Bantustans were in South Africa.
So as an honest broker, one would suspect that this wasn't the case.
Oh, I think there's been a long time since the people in the Middle East think the United States is an honest broker. When President Sadat said in the 1970s that the United States had 99% of the cards, he meant that the United States was the only country that could influence Israel to make the concessions necessary to make peace possible. This agreement does not do that.
Let me ask you about, inflaming passions in the region. We just saw mortar attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. The Soleimani assassination triggered a lot of tensions. What does this do regionally, you think? Does it help the U.S. standing, or does it create more tension, do you think?
Well, it doesn't help the U.S. standing. The U.S. standing is we're in a position of transition of how we're going to handle our interest in the Middle East generally. This has been an issue that's been dormant basically for 10 years. We have not pressed hard on this. There have been gestures in that direction, but there's been no action on the Middle East peace process because it's secondary to fighting radical Islam, meeting the challenges of Iran. There's a whole series of other channels that took priority over that. So therefore, this brings us back up to the surface, and we do have disagreements. It's very important that today you did not have the ambassadors from Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia attending the ceremony. That was their saying that we're not really happy with what's there.
Well, and he mentioned the King of Jordan playing a role in this, and then he rejected it.
Well, the reason being it's very serious for Jordan because it puts Jordan in trouble. Because what they did today is they gave the entire Jordan River Valley side to Israel. So therefore, Palestinian state, when it is created, if it is created like this, will not have any contiguous borders with any Arab state, except for a little bit of Gaza with Egypt.
The Jerusalem Post was out with a piece that was complimentary of the Trump administration, not necessarily about the plan, but that they had a map. They said this has been the first time that this has happened since the Six-Day War, some 52 years ago, where somebody's actually come up with a map. This is how everything's going to look. Is that a move in the right direction?
No, the map is somewhat different in that, because in the previous position, the basic line of negotiations would have been, and has been, the 1967 borders, and there will be minor changes to those borders. Now, this is a massive change to those borders in that it gives 30% of the West Bank, which is 20% of original Palestine, to the Israelis immediately, including the Jordan Valley. And there's talks about the Israelis annexing these territories, this 30% of the West Bank, immediately.
There are some who say that this was all an effort to help Netanyahu, election coming up. Does this help his position back in Israel?
Well, it's hard to say. We're outsiders in the election process, but I think the general thought will be this will strengthen his hand. But he's gotten certain things that many Israelis have wanted for a long time. There's also the whole element within Israeli society that will see this as an impediment to real peace and creating longer-term problems for themselves.
There was this tweet, which I jotted it down, from Ben Rhodes, the Deputy National Security Advisor under Obama. He wrote, both the process and the outcome of Trump's peace plan acts as if Palestinians don't exist. Do you think he's right?
I think there's an element of truth of that. They did not reach, this was a group of people. I think they were sincere in trying to reach peace, but they had no sense at all of how Palestinians or other Arabs actually look at this. They talked themselves, they reinforced themselves. One could see at the press conference today, there's a great deal of enthusiasm for this thing, this agreement, under certain part of the community. But it's not everybody, and it's certainly not the majority.
So kind of where does it go from here?
I think what really is the difficult part of this, it changes the basic parameters of how all discussions have been. And many commitments the United States made in the Camp David peace process with Egypt, the agreement with Jordan, have been pushed aside, and therefore it's going to be interesting to see how those states react to this